This is the Gamemaster Dungeon and Caverns core set by Army Painter. They were nice enough to send this to me, and I've been having some fun playing with it, and I just want to show you guys exactly what we're doing here. So it's a very simple set. They have everything here you need to make this stuff. So this is very beginner friendly. If you don't have any of the tools, or you're worried you don't know what to do, this has instructions and every single thing you'll need. You can make your own dungeon with basically dungeon tiles, cavern tiles, and it has the foam, the paint. We're going to sand this up, and boy, this creates a lot of dust, so we're just going to go ahead and vacuum this up. It has the ruler, I mean everything. Well, it didn't have this rock. I did have to bring this rock in to add some texture here, as well as an aluminum foil ball, which I use here in a moment. But we're just adding texture all over, and the instructions for this set were really, really good. They just gave you lots of nice little step-by-step ideas on what you could do. I mean, it literally told you, what type of pattern to carve, what to use. You can use a pencil to indent the foam to make all these little cracks. These are all things that are commonly used when making terrain or building action figure dioramas or something like that. This was pretty cool. It recommended using the end of the ruler here, which is the perfect fit for the 1-inch tiles to create an uneven look. I do something similar with bricks when I'm building action figure dioramas by using a few Lego pieces. So going back to here, I'm looking at the different styles in this of tile, and they're doing like cave style. So I just decided to go ahead and cut out a bunch of straight dungeon pieces first from one sheet, and then I was going to go ahead and do some cave tiles out of the other one. Now I want to say I only used 2 of the smaller sheets that were included in this kit. I believe there were 6 pieces of foam this size in the kit, as well as 2 much larger sheets. So even though I put together enough to make like a little, instance, it might be like a little cellar dungeon or something. It's not like a main, dungeon, but it's enough for a small encounter. There's way, way, way more materials left in this pack to do a lot more than what I did, and so yeah. So for this portion of the tile, I'm going to make more like the cavern style, so I'm just kind of loosely tracing out with a pen on here, like a more circular kind of caverny shape. Now something to remember when you're using a pen like that is it will bleed through paint, so you probably want to cut most of that ink out unless you want to see a black line. This is the hot wire foam cutter they provided. It didn't come with batteries, but it works pretty well. I was first a little skeptical of it. I have quite a few hot wire foam cutters, but this one, because of how narrow the wire is, it actually holds its shape pretty good when cutting thinner material like this, and it's actually a pretty good foam cutter for this application. So it's very easy to do this. You should probably have a window open or do this in a ventilated area, because the fumes it puts off are not great, but it's not, I would say it's not like, as bad as resin or something like that, but you definitely want to have a window open. So, you could just get different patterns by, depending on how you angle the cutter, and it cuts really smoothly. And I found that this one was set to naturally, because it doesn't have a temperature gauge, but it was right at the right setting that it needed to be to work well cutting this particular foam. Then I decided to put a little platform here that'll be a spot for like treasure or an objective. using the glue that they provided, I'm going to start gluing all this stuff together, as well as adding some little basing debris here in a moment. So this glue, I've never used this kind of glue before. It's made specifically for XPS foam, and it dries really quick. It's got some kind of accelerant in it or something. It's much faster than normal white glue, and it worked really, really well for attaching the foam, but I found it worked really, really well for this application, and that was these little particles. It's like a coarse kind of sand dungeon scatter base material that they provided. And you know, when you do this with white glue, normally you'll put a bunch on and you'll have quite a lot of it fall off even after it's dry. You know, it doesn't stick very well. Those bits of it kind of fall off, and there was a little bit of that with this, but it dried so much faster than I expected it to. I mean, I'm not even sure how long it was, but it was significantly less than, you know, normally when I do this with like white glue or even tacky glue, I have to let it sit overnight. So it's 12 hours later, you know, that I'll touch it again. This I was able to paint in probably about maybe 2 hours, maybe even 1 hour. It was really quick. Just decided to carve a little rock here out of some extra spare pieces of foam. Always can use a nice little rock here and there. And the hot wire cutter is perfect for that. At first I was a little worried that there wasn't going to be enough of this glue, you know, but it actually, like I said, worked really well. I like the texture of the basing material they provided too. You just make whatever kind of pattern you want to with the glue and sprinkle it on there wherever you like. Just, you know, whatever you feel is aesthetically pleasing. It will make a little bit harder for a miniature to stand on, depending on how much carried away you get with it, but not a big deal. As you see here, I'm tapping a lot of this stuff down. You probably don't need to do that with this glue, honestly, but I probably have PTSD from all of my basing materials falling off with using white glue before. And most of that is just lack of patience, right? Any of this stuff, just take your time with it. Don't rush things to dry. You know, always do 2 coats of paint if you can. If it doesn't look right, the second coat always makes it look better. Let the glue dry, all this kind of stuff, right? So now here's something I didn't even know existed, and that is spray primer that is specifically meant for foam. So it will not melt or cause any damage to the foam. So if you use normal spray paint and you get too close, it's going to cause pitting, it's going to kind of melt the foam a little bit. There's ways to do it if you keep your distance, but this stuff worked great, and it didn't even smell bad. I was really surprised. The odor was much lower than normal spray paint. So one of the really cool things they do in this system is, this is the Cavern base paint, is they have a set of paints that all go together. Whenever you're building terrain or anything with like action figure dioramas as well, usually you're doing a base coat, a mid-tone, and a highlight. Sometimes you have to wing this, or you just, you know, figure out what paint works well together, which colors work well together. But this is all done for you here. They literally have, you know, Cavern base, and that's what this is, as well as the dungeon base. Then they have the mid-tone, and then they have the highlight, and you just, the base you're going to try and cover pretty much everything with it, except the very deepest recesses. And then, you know, when you come in with a mid-tone, it's going to be a dry brush, and you're going to not put as much on there. And then obviously the highlight, you're going to use the least amount of paint, but it's going to, you know, really pop and pick out the details. So going on to do some of these dungeon tiles now with the dungeon base. And this is a dry brush that they provided. It's the largest brush in the kit, and that would be the one you would use for, you know, this bigger coat that's going to be covering absolutely everything. So something else I thought was cool is when you're doing the debris, they recommended using the opposite color, like the dungeon paint for the debris in the cavern tiles and the cavern paint for the debris in the dungeon tiles. And you can just go through the same, you know, 3-coat process where you put the base down, then the mid-tone, then the highlight for the very highest parts of that. And those colors actually went together really well. So now we're going to add the middle color, and we're using a large dry brush here. This took me a moment to get used to using this brush and this paint, but it worked very, very well. I mean, this is a very, very forgiving process. So I just go ahead and go through all these. As you can see, some of them had the debris painted, some of them didn't. I was kind of skipping around here because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, and I had to look at the book a few times. So there's some of these where I'm kind of, you know, getting a little bit of the gray on the brown on the debris, but I just go back through and fix it all later. It's not a big deal. Eventually I got to the point where I realized the right amount of paint I needed to have on for this brush and the right angle to get a really nice dry brush effect pretty effortlessly. So at this point I actually read the instructions and noticed they said to use the wash brush for the debris, and it did work a lot better than the smaller dry brush. So we're just continuing to add layers of color on here. This is just the lighter cavern color, not the lightest, but it's the second to lightest. And you're just going to go through the steps that they've laid out, follow them. It's very easy, once again, just layering on these colors, and it really starts to pop out as you dry brush the layers on. So the final step in actual painting was this green slime wash. Now this stuff is great. I mean, it really left a really nice kind of slimy, mossy look, and I really enjoyed using it. And this is something actually I'm probably going to be using some of these washes for other pieces of terrain and dioramas and such that I build. I've been kind of you know, making my own washes, but this stuff quickly spoiled me. It does work very well. So they also provided these really nice little grass plugs, and they look really, really good. They have small, medium, and large ones on here, and you just scatter them all over the place. Now I, of course, not reading anything, just started putting glue down, because normally that's what I would do, is I would glue them down. And you know, that's fine. If you want to really stick them to there, you could put glue down. But I quickly realized it was totally not necessary. They're self-adhesive. I didn't trust the adhesive at first, but they stick on there pretty good on their own. I definitely didn't need the glue, so got them all together and just started pumping them out. So here's a finished example. This is all the tiles that I built, and this would be, like I said, good for a small dungeon. I have some 3D printed items in here as well as some miniatures. Now, you could buy this stuff separately, and you might even be able to get away spending less money, but they actually provided a lot of stuff in here, and I think to get the different tones of paint and to get the quality of paint and like the wash, you'd end up, you know, it'd be hard to beat the price. I mean, you'd be able to get something done, but I don't think you'd have the same quality and the same experience. And if you're new to doing this kind of thing, having the instructions they laid out, and just having everything there to go through the steps. I don't know. I think it's a pretty good value for what you're getting in the box, and I'm very happy with the way that it turned out.